What if I told you this Arsenal versus Chelsea clash wasn't just another London derby, that it quietly exposed which club actually has a title-ready spine in 2026 and which one is still dressing up long-term uncertainty as progress? Because if you watch this match only through highlight packages, you saw intensity, tempo, big chances, tactical fouls, emotional benches. But if you watched it like a front office executive, like a manager protecting his job, like a sporting director calculating wage efficiency, you saw something far more revealing. Let's start with Arsenal. Coming into this game, the messaging from Mikel Arteta in press conferences has been consistent. Control, maturity, emotional regulation. He's been emphasizing game state intelligence, knowing when to accelerate and when to suffocate. That's not just coach speak. That's a team trying to prove they've evolved from beautiful nearly men into ruthless closers. And early on, you saw it. Arsenal didn't fly into chaos. They dictated rhythm. The fullbacks inverted selectively, not compulsively. The midfield triangle didn't just press. They screened passing lanes into Chelsea's half spaces. That's deliberate. But here's the first uncomfortable truth. Arsenal still struggle when the press is bypassed cleanly. When Chelsea broke the first line with vertical combinations, Arsenal's rest defence looked vulnerable. The spacing between centre-backs and holding midfielder stretched just enough to invite risk. Now ask yourself, is that a one-game issue or is it structural? Because Chelsea, under their current project, have been quietly working on vertical speed. In interviews this week, Mauricio Pochettino emphasised bravery between lines, and for stretches, his team delivered. Their wingers stayed wide enough to stretch Arsenal's defensive block, creating isolation moments that forced Arsenal's defenders into 1v1 scenarios. Who stepped up? Arsenal's midfield engine did. They covered ground. They recycled possession under pressure. But who disappeared? Arsenal's secondary attackers faded during critical transitions. When space opened, decision-making lagged. That's not effort, that's composure under elite pressure. Now let's talk about Chelsea. The narrative around Chelsea has been chaotic spending, long contracts, youth obsession. But what mainstream coverage often misses is this. Their wage structure is intentionally front-loaded with flexibility built into later years. The club has structured contracts to manage long-term amortization under financial regulations. That means performances like this aren't just about pride. They directly affect how aggressively they can move in the next transfer window. And tonight, certain players were auditioning, not just for fans, but for boardroom confidence. Chelsea's back line showed moments of bravery playing out from the back against Arsenal's press. But here's the brutal reality. Bravery without precision is self-sabotage. There were two sequences where simple vertical clearances would have reset shape. Instead, overcommitment to build-up nearly cost them. That's coaching philosophy colliding with match reality. Was Pochettino wrong to stick to the build-up identity? Or was that long-term commitment to system over short-term safety? You can argue both ways, but elite managers adapt mid-game. There was a 15-minute stretch where Arsenal's counter-press was suffocating and Chelsea didn't vary their outlet pattern. That's stubbornness disguised as principle. Now let's address the psychological battle. Derbies magnify insecurity. Arsenal, chasing legitimacy as consistent contenders, needed emotional control. Chelsea, rebuilding identity, needed proof of direction. When the first controversial refereeing call happened, you saw it immediately. Arsenal's bench stayed composed. Chelsea's technical area erupted. That reaction difference matters. Why? Because players mirror emotional cues from leadership, and in high-stakes fixtures, emotional leakage costs focus. But here's the twist mainstream outlets won't emphasize. Arsenal still haven't solved their late-game killer instinct problem. They controlled phases, yes. They created expected goals volume. But clinical execution in final 20 minutes? Still inconsistent. That's not just a striker issue, it's a composure ecosystem issue. The second runner hesitates. The overlapping fullback arrives half second late. The cutback target overthinks. Now let's talk injuries. Chelsea's injury list this season has forced rotation instability, and that instability shows in defensive chemistry. Communication breakdowns during Arsenal's wide overloads weren't just tactical flaws, they were relationship gaps. Partnerships matter. Repetition matters. And Chelsea haven't had enough consistent backline continuity. Arsenal, meanwhile, benefited from relative stability. That continuity translates to pressing triggers being automatic rather than reactive. That's why their midfield transitions felt synchronised. But here's where I challenge the hype. Are Arsenal actually title-proof? Or are they just slightly more organised than the chaos behind them? When Chelsea increased tempo in the second half, Arsenal retreated deeper than they'd like to admit. Possession percentage dipped. Direct balls increased. That's pressure response, not dominance. And if this were against a Manchester City-level execution machine, that passive stretch gets punished. Now let's discuss front office implications. Chelsea's ownership group has made it clear they're building for sustained competitiveness, not quick fixes. But here's the financial pressure point. Long-term contracts only look smart if performance growth matches amortized value. If players plateau, those deals become psychological anchors in the dressing room. Arsenal's board, on the other hand, has invested strategically in core age profile players entering prime years. That's calculated. But with calculated risk comes expectation escalation. If Arsenal don't convert this project into silverware soon, financial patience narrows. Fans sense this. Social media reaction after this match wasn't just about the result, it was about trajectory. Arsenal fans are asking if this is finally the year. Chelsea fans are asking if progress justifies patience. Both questions are dangerous. Let's talk individual accountability.